you know, things are still looking really good in terms of the numbers right now. So it's still really nice to see those numbers coming down, sort of less than 300 cases yesterday, less than 400 cases today again, and comparing that to Monday and Tuesday of and Wednesday of last week, that trend is still downwards, and the percent positivity today was only 1.5%. And so
Oh,
this is all really really good news, a sign that things are working well. And in Halton, I think we're up to 74% of people over the age of 12 vaccinated, and 14% of people fully vaccinated, which is also really, really, really good news. And I think the hope is over the next week to be at 20% of people in Ontario having had their second vaccine. The majority of the appointments for vaccinations now are going to people getting their second doses. And so that is fantastic. And there's a huge influx of Moderna vaccine coming into the province over the next week, which is also going to allow more and more people to get vaccinated. There are pop-up clinics coming up at the high schools for kids going back to school, and a couple of changes with regards to the timing of immunizations that are important for people, especially those who got the AstraZeneca vaccine. So they've reduced the length of time between the first and the second dose to 8 weeks, and so anybody that got the AstraZeneca vaccine can get a second dose in 8 weeks, and anybody that got vaccinated before May 9th, and really 4 weeks ago, can book for their second Moderna or Pfizer vaccine. Moderna is just as good as the Pfizer vaccine. And so, one of the things that I have seen a little bit is people vaccine shopping, trying to get a dose of the Pfizer instead of the Moderna vaccine. The technology is equivalent between the two of them. They are both equally effective at preventing severe infection and also preventing infection at all. And it's still the case that if you got an AstraZeneca vaccine as the first dose, you're eligible to get an mRNA for the second one, but it has to be that 8 weeks instead of the 4 weeks. Okay. Um, I touched on the Delta variant a little bit last week, and I think that that's still going to be sort of an ongoing concern over the next little while. So the Delta variant is 60% more transmissible than the UK variant, the B117, that we currently have as the dominant circulating strain in Ontario, and also carries with it a 50% greater risk of hospitalization. So this is serious. It represents probably 90% of the new cases in the UK, and they're still sort of crunching the numbers for the number of people that have the Delta variant in Ontario, but it likely will be the dominant variant in Ontario by early July. So, what do we do about that? So the most important thing is vaccination in terms of preventing infection. One dose of the Pfizer or Moderna vaccine is 90% effective at preventing hospitalization and severe infection. And one dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine is effective at preventing hospitalization or severe infection with this variant. So really, people need to get vaccinated. Now, once people have their second doses of the Pfizer or the Moderna vaccine, they're actually 90% protected against it at all, right, in terms of having any kind of symptomatic infection. So the key is getting that second jab into people's arms, right? So, and in Halton, the numbers are not too bad. I mean, even in the younger age groups, it's sort of 60 to 70% of people that have had at least one first dose. But encouraging relatives, loved ones, anybody that has any kind of sort of hesitation about vaccination to talk to their primary care provider, talk to public health, do some reading on the Halton website and good sources to encourage them to get those vaccines, because that really will be the key to keeping that Delta variant from causing a fourth wave here in the province. The other thing that I guess maybe is interesting and that people are watching is these reports of myocarditis and pericarditis after getting the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine. And this is something that especially parents of teenagers have talk to me about this week in terms of their hesitation about vaccinating their children. So there have been reports, especially in younger men under the age of 18, within a few days of getting their second mRNA vaccine, so either the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine, of developing a condition called myocarditis or pericarditis. So myocarditis is inflammation of the heart muscle, and pericarditis is inflammation of the sort of protective sac around the heart muscle, which sounds quite scary and quite serious. There have been about 800 cases of this reported in the United States out of the 170 million people who have been vaccinated. And in Ontario, they're currently investigating 3 cases of pericarditis or myocarditis after immunization. So the number of people that are getting this condition after a vaccination is quite low. Myocarditis or pericarditis are conditions that can also arise after getting viral infections or bacterial infections. Sometimes people who have autoimmune conditions like rheumatoid arthritis can get an inflammation in the heart muscle, or the sort of mild disease that is treated with Advil or naproxen or steroids.
Mm-hmm. She's frozen.
Yeah.
Welcome to Portugal.
Sorry, what?
You were frozen there for a second.
Oh, that whole time. So the likelihood of getting pericarditis is quite low, and it's usually a mild and self-limited disease. And so with non-steroidal anti-inflammatories like Advil or naproxen, or with steroids, the symptoms usually resolve completely. Some people have myocarditis and don't even know that they have had it. Right? They don't have any symptoms at all. So we do know that COVID can be very serious for young people as well, and the risk of this seems very low. Now, this probably sounds to some people kind of like the AstraZeneca blood clot story, right? Where these conditions, people were seeing these blood clots, and there was a lot of concern, and sort of it was initially sort of played down, say it's rare, that sort of thing, and then eventually public policies were changed to address that. The evidence with this is still evolving, but at this point, the incidence of this looks very low, and the likelihood of recovery is excellent. With the blood clots, although the incidence was very low, that's a very serious condition that carries about a 20% mortality rate with it, which is really why the decision was made to stop giving people the first dose of the AstraZeneca. The myocarditis and pericarditis story seems to be really different than that. But again, it's an evolving picture. But certainly no changes have been made with the recommendations for the mRNA vaccines at this point. Still safe for people over the age of 12, well, the Pfizer one anyways. Yeah. So again, there is really good information that's out there on the Halton website, even about this, the myocarditis and the pericarditis. And people's family doctors and primary care providers are also a really good source of information in terms of sort of answering questions about these conditions and what the real risk of it is and what the potential consequences are. Okay. Yeah.
With the second dose, we're expected to get our second dose next week, and I'm not sure. I know what we had the first time, and I don't really care what we're getting the second time. I don't think you get to choose it. But there's still like a 10% chance then of this new variant affecting you, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a 10% chance of getting sick from it, right?
Okay.
But likely very, very mild symptoms, right?
Okay.
So again, the important thing there is if people do have any symptoms of COVID-19, they should still be getting tested, right? Because the vaccine prevents severe infection, but it doesn't necessarily protect you completely from all infection. But looking at the data from the UK, most of the people who became severely unwell were unvaccinated.
Okay. Okay. Well, we're babysitting again now. So, yeah. Oh, I can tell you a real quick story. We were babysitting Jack, who's in grade 1, and he had a loose tooth. So I said, hey, Jack, why don't you tell your teacher you had a loose tooth? So he told the teacher, and then all the kids in the class were going, oh, Jack, why don't you try a carrot? Could you bite into a cucumber? Oh, it'll be okay, Jack. You just wiggle it. And like the conversation went on for about a half an hour of all these kids giving their, oh, you'll be okay, Jack. And then he pulled his tooth out and it was all over. But it was so interesting about wonders in class. Wow.
Empathy. They were showing
oh, such empathy they have. Yeah. Wow.
What about, Anna, what about vaccinations for the school age children? Like 4 or 5 up to 12?
Yeah, I haven't gotten any updated data yet. Those studies are still ongoing, and okay. Pfizer and Moderna specifically, obviously, they're looking at that group, but they're doing clinical trials on kids between the ages of 2 and 11 right now. So okay. Parents that have enrolled their children in clinical trials for the mRNA vaccines. And so the hope will be that we'll have that data over the summer. And if everything looks safe and okay, that those kids will start to be vaccinated by the fall, potentially. Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as the data looks good. Yeah.
Because they don't tend to get the virus, the children as much.
They do tend to get it, especially with these more contagious variants. And so, that was very much the story in Yellowknife when they went through their outbreak at a couple of schools there. It was actually the kids that were getting it and transmitting it to one another because most of the adult population had actually been doubly vaccinated. The kids don't get severely sick. They usually get very, very mild symptoms, if any at all, but they can still be contagious and transmit it to one another or to other people. Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right. That's
thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
That's good.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Anna.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye.